Donald Trump himself has said, if she gets in and has her way, the markets are going to tank. What do you say?
No, obviously he's wrong. That is the definition of insane. The fact that he's even suggesting price controls and price caps is socialism 101.
Folks, I don't watch Fox News for the same reason I don't drink out of a toilet, because personally, I just don't want to ingest shit.
Glenn, this is a court order. It says you can't eat shit anymore.
But every now and then, the shit eaters that gobble down Fox's real as a Facebook post news like microwave TV dinners get a heaping dose of reality from a guest that Fox News ultimately regrets bringing on. And today, that guest was none other than actual billionaire and successful, not bankrupt businessman Mark Cuban, who went on a media round robin on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News to absolutely tear Trump apart and rip into his insane economic policy. So let's take a listen to what Mark Cuban had to say about the orange con man, saving the best for last, where he goes right into the lion's den of Fox News and insults their morally and financially bankrupt cult leader, while ironically wearing a brilliant shit-eating grin.
Everything that we say about you is sure to trigger Kamala Harris's opponent, Donald Trump.
Well, the big question, obviously, is the economy. And, you know, the people on the right, they're always talking about being a Marxist or a communist, which is ridiculous. And she really put that to bed today.
The burns on Donald Trump were brutal. She went after him for the Carrier plant in Indianapolis, offshoring jobs. She said 200,000 manufacturing jobs were lost. She described him as the, quote, biggest loser ever on manufacturing. Why does Trump even have the perception of being good on the economy?
I mean, he's a good salesperson. You know, he talks a good game, but it doesn't mean he follows through or gets the job done.
I've seen you asked questions about your thoughts about Donald Trump, but I wonder, you're sort of a conversion story, right? You knew him. I think at some point you supported some of what he was for, and you've had an about face. Can you just tell us your Donald Trump story?
Yeah, I mean, I've known him for 25 years. And, you know, I've had various interactions with him, got to, you know, talk to him. We weren't best friends, but in 2015, when he came down the escalator, in 2016, early on, I was like, okay, this guy is not a traditional politician. But I also presumed that he would start to learn and really take an interest in the job and what it takes to run the country and, you know, learning the issues and the details. And I got to the point where I realized he had no interest in learning. He had no interest in details. He had no interest in really finding out what it takes to be successful with any policy. And it was kind of crazy. He, you know, one time I spoke negatively about him, and he sent me the way he sends an email, right? He writes it out, somebody scans it, and then someone sent that as an email to me, and he said, what happened? And literally what I said to him is, Donald, you're not taking the time to learn the issues. You're not taking the time to learn the details. That is a problem that I can't support. And that's where we kind of diverged and went in our different directions. And he hasn't changed. No one talking about Donald Trump says, boy, that really was a nuanced position. Boy, he really was able to show us a detailed policy depth on what he was talking about. It's the exact opposite.
Among likely voters, 50% trust former President Trump more to handle the economy. Only 39% trust Harris. And for all the concerns that are top of mind for voters, 41% of voters say the economy is the most important issue. This is one of the reasons why this race remains so close. Why do you think she's struggling so much to close the deal on this issue?
I don't think she's struggling at all. It just takes time. She's been in the race, 45, 50 days? She went from having horrible favorability polling to, lack of recognition. But in those 45, 50 days, she's turned it completely around. Donald Trump really is the one that should be worried. When it comes to the economy, she was 20, 30 points behind 45 days ago. Now the trend is her friend and she's catching up.
On a recent Harris campaign call, you compared policy proposals made by Trump to those from independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist. What do you mean?
Well, it was a race for socialism, right? Bernie said that credit card companies should cap their interest rates at 15%. Donald Trump, being the socialist that he is, had to beat Bernie. So Donald Trump went out and recommended that interest rate caps be set to 10%. The fact that he's even suggesting price controls and price caps is socialism 101. You haven't heard that from the vice president. You have heard that from Donald Trump.
Well, then how do you interpret?
How
do you interpret what she's doing in terms of price gouging, taking on price gouging by food companies? Because a lot of critics have said that is a form of price controls.
I'm glad you asked me that, Jake, because taking on price gouging is not price controls. She's not saying what the price of tomatoes should be. What she's saying is when there's a crisis, and there will be other crises, there'll be hurricanes, there'll be tornadoes, there'll be floods, there'll be other disasters. And when those disasters happen, she wants to be in a position to be able to say, no, you can't jack up those prices by 40%. You have to stay within a particular realm, a particular guideline. And by the way, there are already 37 states that have similar guidelines. All she's doing is saying, we're just going to make that a national law. So that's certainly not price caps or price controls at all. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is the king of price caps.
Mark, you argue that, and it's always good to have you, you argue that Donald Trump's are particularly, I think you used the word insane. What did you mean by that?
Yep. Well, first of all, strategic tariffs aren't bad. So if a company's trying to dump, or a country's trying to dump in the United States and we have a manufacturer there, tariff him, that's great. But across the board tariffs, 10 or 20% is just inflationary. It's a tax on the American consumer. But to make matters even worse, and what's truly insane, when you threaten a legendary company like John Deere with a 200% tariff if they move, but only a 10 or 20% tariff on China, what you're doing is you're making it easy for the Chinese competitors to take business away from John Deere. That is the definition of insane.
A lot of your business colleagues say the definition of insane is supporting Kamala Harris, yet you do. You're a smart, savvy businessman. You came from nothing to be a multi-billionaire, so you're pretty good at what you do. What do you see in her that you don't see in Donald Trump?
I think she's thorough. If you look at Donald, right, when he talks about his policies, they're very impetuous, they're impulsive, they're set to match whatever's happening at a rally. Whereas with the Harris campaign and Kamala herself, she's very, very thorough. She's very precise. Her team really vets every idea. And to me, that's important as a business person because you can trust what she says. Think about what happens when Donald comes out and says, I'm going to put a 10% cap on credit card interest rates. The next thing that happens isn't that he explains why, it's that everybody around him explains what he says. He can't explain it for himself. Everybody's got to explain for him. Or whether it's a 10 or 20 or 60% tariff or the 200% on John Deere. With Kamala Harris, no one has to explain for her. She takes the time to vet her policies thoroughly. And when she says them and presents them, they are what they are. They're self-explanatory.
Donald Trump himself has said, if she gets in and has her way, the markets are going to tank. What do you say?
No, obviously he's wrong.
Boy, I hope none of those Fox viewers had to spit out their crab dinner when they heard that. Just absolutely brutal takedown after takedown of Donald Trump and his complete lack of understanding of the economy and his trash policies. And I gotta say, I really appreciate Mark Cuban. Not only for doing this and for having a coherent answer to all of the questions, and for standing fervently behind Kamala's vision for the economy, but also going on Fox and coming at this from an angle where maybe, just maybe, those people watching would actually hear what he's saying and understand and potentially shift their view just a little bit about who is actually gonna be good for the economy. Like, regardless what you think of Donald Trump's concepts of plans and tariffs for everyone, we can all agree that his inherent instability and lack of ability to speak on what his policies are or will do will be inherently disruptive for anyone but the upper echelon who he's giving tax breaks to. And God bless Mark Cuban for actually standing on the side of the people and supporting Kamala Harris. Thanks for watching, folks. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you all in the next one.